Hello and welcome to Bite Size M365. My name is Pam DeGraffenreid. I am a Microsoft MVP with Apps and Services.
Hello, my name is Heidi Jordan, and I am also a Microsoft MVP, and I am in the Biz Apps world.
Awesome. Today we're going to be talking about the new designer in Power Automate.
Yes, for those of you that are not familiar with, first of all, let's start with Power Automate. So we're pulling up the Power Automate designer here. So a couple months ago, Microsoft released the new designer. And this is in the cloud flows is what we're doing here. So when you go into the cloud flow and create, you'll see this new kind of graphical interface. And if you don't like this, or if you're used to the old designer, you can actually toggle it off on the top right there. And then that should get you back to the cloud flows that you're used to seeing. But today we're going to kind of talk about the new designer, our thoughts and limitations, and sing some praises to the product.
Absolutely. So let's go back to talking about this switching back and forth. So I'm doing save and switch, and sometimes this doesn't always work exactly. Hold on, let me add another action. Looks like it wants me to do that. So I'm going to do a compose. We'll just put test, and I'm going to go new designer, save and switch. Okay, so this time it worked, but sometimes it doesn't. So one thing you can do if that happens is you can look in your URL for v3 equals true. And if you need to switch back, you can just change that to false and it will take you back. Now, something to note when I did that is that it didn't save it first. Anytime you can use this new designer toggle and kind of go back and forth. However, if you get stuck or if it's not toggling, because sometimes it will happen, then just change it in the URL. Save your flow first, though.
Always.
Always
Yes.
save your flow first.
Yes. And one of the things about the new designer too is that you can probably see on the right side of the screen there is Copilot. So if you want to use Copilot in Power Automate, you have to use the new designer. That is a given. And that's kind of with any of the, the Copilot in the M365 experience. So if you want to use Copilot in Outlook, you need the new Outlook. You need the new Teams. We're kind of seeing that trend of the new items. So that's how you got to use Copilot in Power Automate.
Yeah. So today we're talking about the new designer, but we should do another one where we just talk about Copilot and Power Automate because that's pretty exciting too.
Of course.
So, one of the things that I was really excited about when they first announced the new designer was this site map that they have. So, we've got this new design experience, and I can drag my flow around, and I've got a much bigger canvas to work with. So, I can get anywhere in my flow, and I work with a lot of big flows. So the idea of having a site map and just being to jump and focus in a certain area is something that I really, really like. Now, initially, when I started using this, I was getting errors that I couldn't use the new designer with large flows, but that's not happening anymore. That's something that they fixed, and I'm here for it. This is fantastic. So you can zoom in and out, use a site map, magnify, jump to operations. You have lots of options there.
I
So
think that
really
really
good.
helps with mapping the process out. Like in the old designer, it was very top to bottom. There was only one way to go, really, and then you could do some branching and conditions as your flow went down. But really, that's huge to be able to see all that and zoom out and make it easier to work with.
Definitely. Definitely. So I'm going to add another action here, and I'm going to do get items. I think it's very easy to search and find the connectors, the actions, if you know what you're looking for. That is one thing that I, I do like. So I'm going
Hmm.
to go in here and
There's even a refiner in there too. I think on the actions that you can search specifically that wasn't there in the past.
there is. There is. So in this, one of the things that I like in the classic designer, if you wanted to go in and rename your flows, you could go into the action, click the dot dot dot, click rename, and then rename it and hit enter. Here, you can just type in anything.
That is so nice because we all need to be very descriptive when we title our actions. And if you're not doing that right now and you're listening to this, you will start doing this now. This is something that we all should get in the habit of doing because trust me, as your flows get bigger and you have to reference things from all over the place, you're just going to have a way better experience and a more accurate experience if you are very descriptive in your title names.
Right, and that information is just gonna be so much easier to find.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you're not descriptive in your titles, you can also add a note, which is not a new feature in the designer, but you do have the ability to do a little bit of documentation on your actions there.
Oh, so let me jump into that. I'm gonna go ahead and click here and add a note, and this is uh, getting travel requests.
Awesome. And then you can see the little icon actually shows up on the action there. So it's nice you don't have to actually click into the action to see that there's a note on there. The same thing, it functions the same way in SharePoint if you've ever used the commenting feature. I like that it actually gives you a visual indicator that there's a note there.
Yes. All right, so I'm gonna go in here into settings and what am I looking for? Parameters. I'm gonna do my top counts just to get rid of the little message. So now I'm gonna save my flow. I'm not gonna get any warnings. I'm gonna do a test. And I'm gonna have to do a manual test here.
Generate some outputs.
I am. I am. This is pretty exciting. So
As a spoiler
and
alert here, there's
trip.
that we've seen some improvements on the outputs and making them much easier to read in the old designer. When you had your outputs, you could click on it and then it would actually take you to a new window. But they've made some improvements here that you can see it all in one. Sorry to ruin your surprise, Pam, but I had to
Yeah.
give some context.
You're fine. I thought that perhaps I forgot to click through one of those buttons and added a new item before I started my test. So, like, oh, I don't want to do that again. Okay. So, in here, when I open this back up, we can go ahead, we can see the inputs, which you had before. We can see the outputs. And so these are a little bit easier to see. You can copy those pretty easily. And it's got a breakdown of, some of the properties from that run. But when I click show raw outputs in the classic designer, this is going to open in a new tab. And here it just opens up in the side and you have everything you need right there. So really like that experience.
Same.
All
So the
right.
other thing that's not, it's kind of an enhancement, but the run after settings. So run after settings is definitely available in the old designer too. But if you're not familiar with run after settings, this is a way that you can, you know, change the behavior of actions. So most flows or all flows, they go from top to bottom. They just, the default is that they run when the items are successful. So what if you have something that you only want to run when the step above errored out? That's when you can configure those run after settings. But they made it even easier and more aesthetically pleasing, I would say, is that by adding these icons, so you don't have to click inside the action to look at the run after settings, but you can see it shows a little visual indicator above the action there as to when it's going to run. So what you're seeing now is that action is going to run when the one above it is successful or has failed.
Yeah, I definitely like the visual indicators. So much easier to see. In the classic designer, you just had a red dotted line. So you knew there was a run after setting, but you had no idea how it was set. So um, now I'm curious. Hold on. We're going to go back here and we'll take a look. Oh, so it's not even a red one in this case. I know.
That's
And it
hard.
just tells
It's hard to
you to go
distinguish.
in and check. Okay.
Yes, for sure. So I have the question then, if you copy and paste this action, does that configure run after come with it?
Okay. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to copy the action. Now, copy action is something that's actually new. You have it in the classic designer on really just about everything. You only have it on actions in the new designer. I'm going to go ahead and paste an action. And when we come in here and take a look, the run after, and you can see they do not copy those run after settings in the new designer.
Bummer.
Is it
Worth a
though?
try.
I mean, that might be something that you do, want to be deliberate about setting, because I could very easily see having that set, copying it over, and forgetting that I had it set. Although with the new visual indicators, you would be able to see. So, maybe,
That's
worth
true.
considering.
That's true. I've heard that there has been improvements in the copy paste experience in general too for the new designer. So that's good to see because it sometimes worked and sometimes didn't in the old designer.
I always had a lot of luck with it. I like to be able to take, we have some specific organization, you know, uh, kind of things that we do and organization logic, right? That I can take, put together in a scope, and I can just copy and paste that into all my flows at the beginning or wherever I need it. And that part is done. And that's something that, at least right now, Copilot's not necessarily going to pick up. So being able to copy and paste an action, that's a feature I really hope comes soon, or not a action, a scope, like a set of actions, something I really hope comes soon. So here's another thing that this is just a small thing, but it makes me super happy every time I do it. So I'm going to hit slash and then I get insert dynamic content or insert expression. Just by typing that, I don't have to go over here and click it. So that's it's a little thing, but I think it's a big win for me.
It's an improvement because in the old designer, you had to make sure you were on the right zoom settings so that it would show up in the certain way you wanted it to. So I
Right.
definitely think that's an improvement. Yes.
Yeah,
The one
yeah,
other thing though that's missing here is like undo. I noticed and redo. I think that's been missing from the ribbon.
they
The
are.
undo and
They
redo
are.
actions. Well, we'll put it on the Christmas list. Maybe we'll see where Microsoft takes it. So but seriously though, they do take the feedback into consideration. Like for example, when you click off that new designer, they'll ask you, they'll put up a survey and say why did you click off this? And they'll have also on the bottom section they say like why did you click this off? We've improved these things if this is why you clicked it off. So they do take your feedback seriously and they do continually work to improve the product.
Yeah, I was hoping I could get that to pop up and I couldn't. But I absolutely agree with you, Heidi. They have put so much invested so much into improvements in the new designer where we've come a long way since this first came out. The ability, like all of the things we just went through, they weren't there. Well, Copilot was there, but I think there's improvements coming to Copilot too, which I'm really excited to see. So um, I know that there are a lot of people are still using the classic designer. They've been reluctant to use the new designer for whatever reasons, but I think there's actually been so many improvements that it's worth revisiting.
This reminds me of is classic and modern SharePoint, honestly. It took a lot of us a while to get into the modern interface, but it was honestly worth it. So, yeah, I agree. I do think it's time to give it another look.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This has been awesome, and we'll talk again soon.